Hi, I'm Violet Bloom, a 30-year-old woman living in a quiet apartment in the city. It happened at exactly 10:42 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was sitting on my couch, tired from a long day of work, when my phone buzzed on the coffee table. The screen lit up with a notification from my sister, Natalie. I picked it up, expecting a question about the balloons or the catering schedule. Instead, I saw 7 words that stopped my heart. Don't come to Mom's retirement party. I stared at the screen. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. I thought it was a joke at first, or maybe a mistake. But then, a second notification popped up right underneath it. Dad liked "Don't come to Mom's retirement party." That little thumbs-up icon felt like a slap across the face. It was casual. It was cold. It was final. I sat there in the silence of my living room, freezing cold despite the blanket on my lap. I had spent months planning this party. I had paid for the venue, the food, the flowers. I had done everything to make it perfect for them. And with one text message and one click of a button, I was uninvited from my own hard work. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? Hi, I'm Violet Bloom, a 30-year-old. I didn't cry immediately. I just stared at the phone until the screen went black, reflecting my own stunned face back at me. You might think I would scream. You might think I would throw the phone across the room, shattering the glass against the wall, or that I would call them immediately and demand an explanation. A normal person would probably drive over to their house, bang on the door and ask, "What is this? Is this a joke?" But I didn't do any of that. I just sat there. The silence in my apartment was heavy, pressing against my ears like water. My heart was beating a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. Thump, thump, thump. But my hands were perfectly still. To understand why I didn't scream, you have to understand my role in the Bloom family. You have to understand the architecture of our house, not the physical bricks and wood, but the emotional structure we lived in. Every family has roles. They are like costumes assigned to us at birth, or maybe they develop slowly over time, stitched together by tiny moments of reinforcement. There's the star, that was Natalie. The golden child. The one whose emotions dictated the weather of the household. If Natalie was happy, the sun was shining. If Natalie was upset, it was a hurricane, and everyone had to board up the windows. Then there were my parents, the audience. They watched the star. They applauded her highs and panicked at her lows. And then there was me, Violet. I wasn't the star. I wasn't the audience. I was the stage manager. I was the crew. I was the backbone. For 30 years, I was the one who made things work. I was the grease in the gears. If something was broken, Violet fixed it. If something cost too much money, Violet paid for it. If feelings were hurt, Violet smoothed them over. I was the one in the black clothes standing in the shadows, making sure the spotlight hit Natalie just right. I sat there on my couch, the "don't come" text burning in my mind, and a memory surfaced. It wasn't a random memory. It was the moment my role had been cemented. I was 16. Natalie was 14. It was a Tuesday night, much like this one. The air in our house was thick with tension. Natalie wanted a dress for the spring formal. It wasn't just any dress. It was a floor-length cerulean blue silk gown from the boutique downtown. It cost $300. My father was sitting at the kitchen table, his head in his hands, staring at a stack of bills. My mother was standing by the sink, wringing a dish towel like she was trying to strangle it. "We can't do it, Nat," my dad said, his voice tired. "The transmission on the van just died. We don't have $300 for a dress you'll wear once." That was the trigger. Natalie didn't just cry, she exploded. She screamed that her life was over. She screamed that she was the only girl in school who looked like trash. She swept a stack of mail off the counter onto the floor. "I hate you," she shrieked, her face turning a blotchy, ugly red. "I hate this house. I hate being poor." She stormed up the stairs, slamming her door so hard the pictures on the hallway wall crooked. My parents didn't discipline her. They didn't tell her to clean up the mail. They just collapsed. My mom started to cry, soft, defeated sobs. My dad looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 seconds. "I don't know what to do," Mom whispered. "She's going to be miserable for weeks." I was standing in the doorway, holding my backpack. I had a job bagging groceries at the supermart. I made $5.25 an hour. I had been working every weekend for 6 months, saving up for a used Honda Civic so I wouldn't have to take the bus to school senior year. I had exactly $312 stashed in a hollowed-out book in my room. I looked at my mom's tears. I looked at my dad's slumped shoulders. I couldn't stand the misery. I couldn't stand the noise of Natalie's sobbing echoing from upstairs. It felt like the walls were closing in. So I made a choice. I chose peace. I walked upstairs, past Natalie's room where she was wailing, and went to my bookshelf. I took out the money. It was a thick stack of ones and fives, smelling like old paper. I walked to the mall. It took me 40 minutes. I bought the dress. When I came home, I walked into Natalie's room and laid the garment bag on her bed. She sat up, her eyes puffy. She unzipped the bag and the blue silk spilled out. She didn't say thank you. She squealed. She grabbed the dress and ran to the mirror. "Oh my God, Daddy changed his mind," she yelled. I stood in the doorway. "Daddy didn't buy it," I said quietly. "I did." She paused for half a second, looked at me, and then went back to the mirror. "Well, thank God someone did. Does it make my hips look big?" Downstairs, the relief was palpable. My mom made spaghetti that night, her favorite, and the house was warm. The war was over. "You're such a good big sister, Violet," my mom said, piling cheese onto Natalie's plate. "You really saved the day." They didn't ask if I had any money left. They didn't ask about the car I was saving for. They didn't ask why a 16-year-old had to bail out the family finances. They just accepted the peace I bought them. I never got the car. I took the bus for another year. And I learned a dangerous lesson that day. My value comes from my utility. If I fix things, they will love me. If I pay for things, there will be peace. That pattern became my life. When I was 22 and fresh out of college, Dad lost his job at the plant. He was out of work for 6 months. I was working my first corporate job, an entry-level admin assistant role, making barely enough to pay my own rent. I came home for Sunday dinner and saw a red envelope on the counter. The final notice for the electricity bill. My dad was pretending to read the paper, but his hands were shaking. My mom was busy in the garden, hiding. I didn't say a word. I took the bill. I went to the ATM. I deposited half my paycheck into their account. The lights stayed on. Dad never mentioned it. He was too proud. But he stopped shaking. I bought his dignity back, but the cost was my own savings. When Natalie got a DUI in college, I was the one who drove 3 hours at 2:00 a.m. to bail her out. I remember the smell of the police station, stale coffee and floor wax. Natalie was sitting on a metal bench, mascara running down her face, smelling like cheap vodka. When she saw me, she didn't apologize. She rolled her eyes. "Took you long enough," she slurred. "Did you call Mom and Dad?" "No," I said, signing the paperwork. "I didn't want them to worry." "Good," she snapped. "Don't be a snitch." I paid the bail. I drove her home. I found her a lawyer. I paid the retainer. I kept the secret. I became invisible. My reliability made me boring. I was like running water or electricity. You only notice it when it stops working. You don't walk into a room and say, "Thank you, light switch, for turning on." You just expect it to work. If it doesn't, you kick the wall. My family assumed I would always be there. They assumed I had no feelings, no limits, and no need for appreciation. They thought I was a machine designed to dispense solutions and cash. And the machine was planning the biggest party of the year. My mom was retiring after 30 years of teaching 3rd grade. It was a huge deal in our small town. She had been talking about this day for 5 years. She wanted a gala. She wanted elegance. She wanted to show off to the other teachers and the church ladies. "I want to feel like a queen, Violet," she had told me over coffee 3 months ago, her eyes shining. "Just for one night, I want everything to be perfect." "I'll handle it, Mom," I said. It was a reflex. "I'll make it perfect." And I did, or I was doing it. I poured myself into this party. I treated it like a second job. I found the venue, a beautiful botanical garden with a glass ceiling. It cost $3,800 just to rent the space for 4 hours. I paid the deposit from my savings. I hired a caterer who specialized in French cuisine because Mom loves French food. I went to the tasting alone because Natalie was busy with yoga and Mom had a headache. I sat there eating tiny quiches and taking notes on napkins. That was another $2,000 down payment. I booked a jazz trio because Dad hates DJ music. "Real instruments," he always said. "None of that computer noise." So I found the best trio in the state. I spent weeks, literal weeks, scanning 300 photos from our old family albums. I sat at my dining table every night until midnight, the scanner humming, fixing the colors on the computer. I removed scratches from photos of Mom in the 80s. I removed red-eye from photos of Natalie's birthdays. I created a slideshow set to her favorite songs. I designed the invitations with gold foil. I ordered a floral wall for photos made of real white roses, not the cheap plastic ones. I did all of this. Natalie said she was too overwhelmed with her part-time job at the boutique. Dad said he didn't understand party planning. So it was just me, Violet and her checkbook, Violet and her time, Violet and her effort. And now, 3 weeks before the event I built, the event I paid for, they sent a text. Don't come. They didn't just uninvite me. They uninvited the architect. They uninvited the financier. But they were so used to me being invisible, they forgot that I was the engine. They thought the party was just happening by magic. They thought the flowers grew themselves, and the food appeared out of thin air because they deserved it. They were about to find out that magic isn't real. They were about to find out exactly how much heavy lifting the invisible daughter did. I looked at the text again. Don't come. The letters seemed to swim on the screen. It was so casual, no punctuation at the end, just a command. My thumb hovered over the screen. A million angry responses flooded my brain, hot and frantic. I paid for everything. Are you insane? Do you know how much money I've spent? After I bileted you out, after I paid the electric bill, after I bought the dress, I wanted to type it all out. I wanted to list every sacrifice I had made for 30 years. I wanted to scream through the digital void. But then, a strange feeling washed over me. It wasn't peace. It was colder than that. It was numbness. It was the feeling of a bone finally snapping after being bent for too long. If I argued, they would call me dramatic. Violet is making everything about her again, Natalie would say. If I cried, they would call me sensitive. Oh, Violet, stop being a baby, Dad would say. If I listed everything I paid for, they would call me transactional. You only do nice things so you can hold it over our heads, Mom would say. There was no winning with them. The game was rigged. The only way to win was to stop playing. So I typed one word, cool, I hit send. Then I put the phone down on the coffee table face down. I stood up and walked to my kitchen. I felt like I was floating, detached from my own body. I poured a glass of water and drank it. The water was cold. I focused on the sensation of the cold liquid going down my throat. My hands were perfectly steady. That surprised me. I expected to be shaking, but I wasn't. My heart was beating slow and hard, like a war drum, but my hands were steady as a surgeon's. I walked over to my laptop on the dining table and opened it. The screen glowed, waking up from sleep mode. It showed the spreadsheet I had created for the party. Bloom Retirement Master Plan XLSX. It was a thing of beauty. Color-coded rows. Every vendor, every timeline, every payment due date, every dietary restriction for the guests. It was a masterpiece of organization. It was the blueprint of my mother's dream night. I looked at it. The blue rose for confirmed. The green rose for paid. I opened my email. I started with the venue, the botanical garden. I found the email thread with Sarah, the event coordinator. We had exchanged 30 emails about lighting and table arrangements. I hit reply. Subject: Cancellation of Bloom Retirement Event, Sept. 24th. Dear Sarah, unfortunately, due to unforeseen family circumstances, we need to cancel the event scheduled for the 24th. I am the contract holder. I understand this forfeits the deposit. Please cancel the reservation immediately and release the date. Sincerely, Violet Bloom. I clicked send. I didn't hesitate. I didn't flinch. Next was the caterer. This one was harder, only because the chef was so nice. But I couldn't pay $2,000 more for a party I was banned from. Subject: Cancellation. Please cancel the catering order for the Bloom party. Do not deliver the food. Keep the down payment. Send. The florist, cancel. The jazz trio, cancel. The bakery making the 3-tiered lemon cake with the raspberry filling, cancel. The printer doing the custom gold foil invitations. I called them because it was late, but they sometimes worked nights. Hi, this is Violet Bloom. I need to stop the print order. Oh honey, we just set the plates, the woman on the other end said. Are you sure it's a rush fee to stop now? I'm sure, I said. My voice was calm. Stop the presses. Shred whatever you have. I went down the list like an executioner. One by one, I dismantled the party. It had taken me 3 months to build, brick by brick. It took me 20 minutes to destroy. The hardest part was the slideshow. I minimized the browser and looked at the file on my desktop. Mom Retirement Slideshow Final M4. I remembered scanning the photo of Mom holding me when I was 2 days old. She looked so tired but so happy in that picture. I remembered the photo of us at the beach when I was 7, building a sandcastle. before Natalie was born, before I became the servant. I hovered the mouse over the file. If I deleted this, it was gone. The original scans were on a hard drive I had formatted yesterday to clean it up. The physical photos were back in their boxes in my attic, disorganized. This video was the only coherent story of her life. I thought about the text, "Don't come." I thought about Dad liking the message. I clicked the file. I dragged it to the trash bin. Then I right-clicked the trash bin, empty trash. "Are you sure you want to permanently delete these items?" the computer asked. I clicked yes. It was gone. I sat back in my chair. The room was quiet. The hum of the refrigerator seemed loud. I waited for the guilt to hit me. I waited to feel like a bad daughter. That was my programming, right? Violet makes everyone happy. If Violet isn't making people happy, Violet is failing. But I didn't feel bad. I felt light. It was a terrifying lightness. It was the feeling of dropping a heavy backpack after hiking for 30 miles. My shoulders physically relaxed. My jaw unclenched. For the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying them. I had put the burden down. I expected my phone to ring immediately. I expected the vendors to call my mother. I expected panic. But the night passed in silence. The next day passed in silence. I went to work. I sat at my desk. I answered emails. Every time my phone buzzed, I checked it expecting the explosion. But nothing came. They truly didn't know. They were so arrogant, so disconnected from the reality of labor, that they thought the party was a separate entity from me. They thought they could cut off the hand but keep the gift. They thought the venue was booked because they were special, not because I had written a check. It took 4 days. 4 days of silence. 4 days of me sleeping better than I had in years. On Saturday morning, 4 days after the text, the anger began. Not because they missed me, not because they realized they had been cruel, but because the machinery of their life had stopped working. I was sitting on my balcony drinking coffee, watching the sun come up over the city. My phone started buzzing. First, it was a call from Mom. "Incoming call, Mom." I stared at it. I let it ring. It went to voicemail. Then a text from Natalie. "Why is the caterer asking for a refund address? He sent an email to Dad's account saying the order is canceled." I took a sip of coffee. I didn't reply. Then Dad text. "Violet, pick up the phone. The florist just called the house asking why we canceled the rose wall." Then Mom again. A text in all caps. "What did you do? Why are they canceling?" I sat there, feeling the warmth of the coffee mug in my hands. The notifications were piling up like storm clouds. They weren't asking, "Are you okay?" They weren't saying, "We're sorry." They were asking, "Where is our stuff?" They were mad that the servants' quarters were empty. They were mad that the magic trick had been revealed, that the rabbit didn't come out of the hat unless someone put it there. I typed one final message to the group chat. "You uninvited me. The party was my gift. Since I am not welcome, neither is my gift. Good luck." Then I turned my phone to Do Not Disturb. They wanted a party without Violet. They were about to get exactly that. And I knew with grim satisfaction that they had absolutely no idea how to fix it. They had 3 days left, no venue, no food, and no fixer. Let them scramble. Let them sweat. I was done. The date of the party finally arrived. It was Saturday, September 24th. The universe has a cruel sense of humor because the weather was absolutely perfect. It was one of those golden autumn evenings where the air is crisp, the sky is a deep, bruising purple, and the breeze is gentle. It would have been magical at the botanical garden. I could picture it clearly, the sunset filtering through the glass ceiling, hitting the white rose wall, making the champagne glasses sparkle. It would have been the kind of night people talk about for years. Instead of being at the party in a silk dress, holding a glass of Chardonnay, I was in my living room wearing flannel pajama pants and an oversized t-shirt with a hole in the shoulder. I was sitting on the floor with Bentley, my golden retriever mix. He was lying on his back, legs in the air, waiting for belly rubs. He was the only family member I had left who didn't ask me for money, didn't judge my life choices, and didn't uninvite me from things I paid for. I brushed his fur, the rhythmic swish, swish, swish of the brush filling the quiet room. I looked at the clock. 7:15 p.m. The party, or whatever was left of it, would be starting right now. I couldn't help but wonder what was happening. I knew my parents too well. I knew they wouldn't cancel the date. They were too proud. They had told everyone at church, everyone at the school, and all the neighbors that tonight was the gala. To cancel, it would be to admit defeat. To cancel, it would be to admit that without Violet, they were incompetent. They couldn't do that, so they would have scrambled. They would have tried to patch something together in 3 days. My phone chimed on the cushion next to me. I picked it up. It was a message from my cousin Jen. Jen was the black sheep of the extended family, mostly because she refused to play their games. She knew I did everything. She knew Natalie was a brat. I hadn't told Jen about the "don't come" text, but she was smart. She must have walked into the party, looked around, and realized immediately that I wasn't there. Jen sent a photo. My heart hammered against my ribs. Do I look? Do I want to see? I tapped the screen. The image loaded. I had to zoom in to really process what I was seeing. I let out a sound that was half laugh, half gasp. They were in the garage. My parents' suburban 2-car garage. The beautiful botanical garden with the glass ceiling was gone. The white rose wall was gone. The jazz trio was gone. In their place was a scene that looked like a tragic yard sale. The garage door was open, revealing the concrete driveway. There was an oil stain on the floor near the left corner that they hadn't even covered up. Taped to the garage door was a plastic banner. It was sagging in the middle because they hadn't used enough tape. It said "Happy Retirement" in generic red letters. It looked like something you buy at a dollar store 5 minutes before a child's birthday party. There were chairs scattered around the driveway. Not the gold Chiavari chairs I had rented with the velvet cushions. These were dirty white plastic folding chairs. Some of them didn't match. I recognized a few lawn chairs from the shed mixed in. On a card table near my dad's tool bench, which was still covered in screwdrivers and rags, there were boxes of cupcakes. I zoomed in on the cupcakes. They were in plastic clamshell packaging. I knew exactly which grocery store they came from. They had neon blue frosting that looked chemical and hard. No 3-tiered lemon cake with raspberry filling. Just dry, store-bought cupcakes sitting next to a roll of paper towels. And the guests? The photo showed maybe 20 people standing around awkwardly holding red plastic Solo cups. I had invited 75 people. Half the family hadn't shown up. Maybe they got the cancellation email from the venue and thought the whole thing was off. Maybe they saw the venue change to the garage and decided they were busy. Or maybe, just maybe, they knew something messy was happening and stayed away. But the most painful and satisfying part of the photo was my mother. She was standing in the middle of the driveway, under the harsh fluorescent light of the garage opener. She was wearing the expensive, floor-length silver gown she had bought for the gala. The dress was beautiful. But standing on the oil-stained concrete, next to a tool bench and a plastic banner, she looked ridiculous. The hem of the dress was dragging on the dirty floor. She was smiling at someone off camera, but it wasn't a real smile. I knew her smiles. This was the "I am panicking but I refuse to show it" smile. Her eyes were wide and frantic. Her posture was stiff. She looked embarrassed. She looked like a queen who had lost her castle and was trying to hold court in a shed. And Natalie, I found her in the background of the photo. She wasn't the sparkling princess tonight. She was wearing a dress that was too short, and she was arguing with someone on her phone. Her hair looked messy. She looked sweaty. She wasn't enjoying the party, she was working. For the first time in her life, Natalie was dealing with the logistics. She was realizing that ice melts. She was realizing that guests need napkins. She was realizing that music doesn't just happen, you have to set up the speaker. I stared at the photo for a long time. Part of me, the old Violet, the good daughter Violet, felt a sharp pang of sadness. I wanted my mom to have her nice party. I wanted her to feel special. I hated seeing them look trashy. That old instinct to fix it flared up in my chest like a match. I could order pizzas, I thought. I could call a different bakery. I could drive over there right now with my nice speakers and a playlist. I could save it. I looked at Bentley. He nudged my hand with his wet nose. I looked around my quiet, peaceful apartment. If I went over there, they wouldn't thank me. They wouldn't hug me and say, "Oh, Violet, we were so wrong." No, they would scream at me. They would blame me for the garage. They would say I ruined it on purpose to humiliate them. They would say the oil stain was my fault. They would say the bad cupcakes were my fault. They wouldn't see that they did this. They pressed the button. They sent the text. They chose this. I typed a reply to Jen. "Looks fun." Jen replied instantly with a skull emoji. "It's a disaster. The cupcakes are stale. Aunt Linda is drunk on box wine and loudly asking everyone where you are. Your mom is telling people you had a mental breakdown and couldn't handle the pressure. Natalie looks like she wants to murder someone because she had to go buy ice." I read that again. Mom is telling people you had a mental breakdown. Even in the middle of her garage disaster, she was lying to protect her image. She couldn't admit she uninvited me. She had to make me the broken one. I put the phone down. I let them have their embarrassment. They wanted to cut me out. This was what life looked like without me. It looked like a garage. It tasted like stale cupcakes. It felt like disappointment. I ordered myself a large pepperoni pizza with extra cheese. I opened a bottle of good red wine, the kind I would have brought to the party. I sat on my couch, ate pizza, and watched a comedy movie. I laughed. I drank wine. I didn't cry that night. I felt a strange, cold satisfaction settling in my chest. It was the first time in my life I let them fall. I watched them hit the ground, and I didn't rush to put a pillow under them. The silence didn't last long. The garage party was the eye of the storm. The next morning, the winds hit. I woke up on Sunday around 9 o'clock am. Usually, I would be awake at 6 o'clock, anxious about cleaning up after the party or driving mom to brunch. But today, I slept in. When I looked at my phone, the lock screen was full. 19 notifications. My family couldn't accept that their failure was their own fault. That's not how the Bloom family dynamic worked. In our house, if something went wrong, it must be Violet's fault, even if Violet wasn't there. Especially if Violet wasn't there. I made coffee, strong and black. I sat at my kitchen table, the morning sun hitting the wood. I took a deep breath and unlocked my phone. I went to the voicemails first. I put it on speaker so I wouldn't have to press the toxic voices against my ear. First was Natalie. Timestamp, 11:43 p.m. last night. She must have been cleaning up the trash in the driveway. Violet, you are literally psychotic. Do you know that? You are sick. You embarrassed mom in front of everyone. Do you know how stupid we looked? We had to buy chips and salsa from the gas station because the food didn't come. Aunt Linda laughed at the banner. You are so jealous. You've always been jealous of me and mom's relationship because we're actually close. You just wanted to ruin her big day because you're bitter and alone and you have no friends. Call me back right now. Her voice was high-pitched, screeching, slurring slightly. Jealous. I almost laughed out loud in my empty kitchen. I had paid for the party. I had planned every detail. How could I be jealous of something I built? She was projecting. She was the one who was jealous of my competence, so she called me jealous of her. What? Her ability to fail. Next was mom. Timestamp, 8:15 am this morning. Violet, I don't even know what to say to you. I raised you better than this. To cancel everything without telling us, to leave us stranded like that, I was humiliated. My friends were asking why we were in the driveway. I had to lie for you. I had to tell them you were sick in the head. Why would you do this to me? After everything I've done for you. You are a cruel, selfish girl. After everything I've done for you, the phrase hung in the air like smoke. What had she done for me lately? Had she helped me move? No. Had she remembered my birthday last year? No, she sent a card a week late. Had she offered to pay me back for the deposit? No. She did nothing but critique my clothes, ask for loans, and tell me not to come to her party. Then, the text from Dad. He didn't leave voicemails. He hated talking on the phone. His text was short, received at 8:30 am. Your mother is devastated. She has been crying all morning. I agreed to the text about you not coming for the piece. Natalie was upset that you were taking over everything and acting bossy, and we just wanted a calm night without your drama. You blew this out of proportion. You need to apologize to your sister and your mother immediately if you want to be part of this family. I read Dad's text 3 times. My hands started to shake. I agreed for the piece. That was the knife. That was the phrase that cut deeper than any insult Natalie threw. He knew it was wrong. He knew I had done the work. But Natalie had probably complained. Natalie probably whined that I wouldn't let her pick the music, or that I was asking her to help with the invitations. Natalie wanted to be the center of attention without doing the work, and my competence threatened her. So she threw a tantrum. And Dad, wanting peace, decided to throw me under the bus. It was easier to hurt Violet than to tell Natalie to grow up. It was easier to crush Violet than to deal with Natalie's screaming. It was easier to uninvite Violet than to parent Natalie. Their peace was built on my pain. Their comfort required my suffering. I realized then, staring at my phone, that I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a utility. I was an appliance. And when the appliance became loud or difficult, they tried to unplug it. And now that the appliance had stopped working, they were kicking it. I felt a tear finally roll down my cheek. It was hot and angry. I didn't want to talk to them. I didn't want to explain that they uninvited me. I didn't want to point out the logic. Logic didn't matter to them. They were rewriting history in real time to make themselves the victims. I picked up my phone. I went to Natalie's contact. Block caller. It felt good. I stared at Mom's contact. My finger hovered. I couldn't do it yet. I wasn't ready to cut the cord completely. I still had that little girl inside me who wanted her mommy to love her. But I couldn't listen to her voice anymore. I typed a message to the family group chat. Mom, Dad, Natalie, even though she wouldn't see it. You told me not to come. Dad liked the message. I respected your wishes. Since I wasn't invited, I canceled the things I paid for. That is not cruel, that is consequences. I am not jealous. I am done being the bank and the maid. Do not come to my apartment. I sent it. Then I muted the conversation so I wouldn't see their replies pop up. I thought the worst was over. I thought the garage party was the climax. I thought blocking Natalie was the end of the drama. I was so wrong. The garage party wasn't the end, it was just the spark. The real fire was coming and it was going to burn everything down. I spent the next week in a fog. I went to work. I came home. I walked Bentley. Bentley was my rock. When I cried on the floor, he licked the tears off my face. When I couldn't sleep, he laid his heavy head on my legs. He was the only living thing in my world that offered unconditional love. He didn't care about parties or money. He just wanted to be with me. I had a business trip coming up. Just a short one, 2 days in Chicago for a conference. I had booked it months ago. Usually I would ask my parents to watch Bentley. They had a big fenced backyard and Bentley knew them. Even though we were fighting, I figured. It's just the dog, they love the dog. They always made a fuss over him. They wouldn't take their anger out on an animal. It was a practical decision. I didn't trust a kennel and my usual pet sitter was out of town. I texted Mom on Tuesday, I have a trip for work. Wedfry, can you watch Bentley? I'll drop him off and stay in the car. We don't have to talk, I just need him to be safe. She replied an hour later. Fine, drop him off at 8. She didn't say love you. She didn't say okay honey, just fine. I thought it was a truce. I thought, at least we can agree on the dog. I dropped Bentley off on Wednesday morning. I pulled into the driveway, the same driveway that had hosted the disaster party. The banner was gone but the oil stain was still there. I kissed Bentley's nose. Be a good boy, I whispered into his soft fur. I love you, I'll be back Friday. He wagged his tail, happy to be visiting Grandma. He hopped out of the car and trotted to the door. Mom opened the front door. She was wearing a bathrobe. She stood there, arms crossed, not looking at me. She looked at the dog, then opened the screen door. She took the leash from my hand without touching my skin. She didn't say hello. She didn't look me in the eye. I'll pick him up Friday at 5, I said to the closed screen door. She just shut the main door in my face. Click, the lock turned. I drove to the airport with a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach. A cold, heavy stone of dread. I told myself I was being paranoid. It's just my parents, I thought. They are selfish, yes. They are mean, yes, but they aren't monsters. They wouldn't hurt a dog. I should have listened to my gut. I should have turned the car around, kicked down the door, and taken him back. Because when I came back on Friday, the world I knew didn't just crack. It shattered into a million pieces, and there was no glue in the world that could fix it. The flight back from Chicago was turbulent. The plane shook and dipped, the seatbelt sign dinging constantly. Usually, I'm a nervous flyer, clutching the armrests until my knuckles turn white. But this time, I didn't care about the turbulence. My mind was entirely on Bentley. That stone of dread in my stomach had grown into a boulder. I hadn't received a single picture of him while I was gone. Usually, Mom would send at least one blurry photo of him sleeping on the rug with the caption, "Lazy boy." But this time, silence. I landed at 4:30 p.m. I rushed to my car in the long-term parking lot. I didn't even stop for coffee. I drove straight to my parents' house. The house looked normal, the lawn was mowed. The curtains were drawn. It looked like the home of a respectable retired couple. It looked like a lie. I pulled into the driveway. My heart was pounding. I got out of the car, I didn't even knock. I had a key, the key I used when I came over to fix their Wi-Fi or water their plants or deliver their groceries. I unlocked the door and pushed it open. Mom, Dad. I'm here for Bentley, I called out. My voice sounded thin in the hallway. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Usually, Bentley would hear the key in the lock and come thundering down the hallway, his claws clicking on the hardwood, his tail thumping against the walls. Silence, I walked into the living room. My mom was sitting in her armchair, reading a magazine. My dad was watching the news with the volume low. Natalie was there too. She was sitting on the sofa, scrolling on her phone. They looked up when I walked in. They didn't smile. They didn't look happy to see me. They looked smug. There was a weird energy in the room, like static electricity before a lightning strike. "Where's Bentley?" I asked. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. My mom closed her magazine slowly. She placed it on the side table, lining up the edges perfectly. She looked at me with a calm, cold expression. "He's not here," she said. "Did you take him for a walk?" I asked, looking around for his leash. It wasn't on the hook by the door. "No," Mom said. "Is he in the backyard?" I took a step toward the kitchen door. "Violet, sit down," my dad said. His voice was heavy, authoritative. It was the voice he used when I was a child and I was in trouble. "I don't want to sit down," I said. My panic was rising, a hot tide in my throat. "Where is my dog?" Natalie looked up from her phone. She smirked. It was a tiny, fleeting thing, but I saw it. She looked bored. "He was too much trouble," Natalie said. She inspected her fingernails. "He shed everywhere. He barked at the mailman. He was annoying." "So where is he?" I screamed. I felt my controls snapping. "Where is he?" My mom stood up. She smoothed her skirt. "Your sister sold him," she said. The world stopped. The clock on the wall stopped ticking. The sound of the TV faded away. "What?" I whispered. "Natalie found a nice family for him," Mom said, her voice terrifyingly reasonable. "A farm, out in the country. He'll have room to run. He'll be happier there. He won't be cooped up in your little apartment all day." "You sold him?" I looked at Natalie. "I got $300 for him," Natalie said. She sounded proud. "Some guy on Craigslist. He said he wanted a hunting dog." A hunting dog. Bentley was afraid of thunder. Bentley slept with a teddy bear. Bentley wasn't a hunting dog. He was a baby. "You sold my dog," I repeated. The words felt like broken glass in my mouth. "He is my dog. He is microchipped to me. You had no right." "We did it for your own good," Dad said, not looking at me. "You're too attached to that animal. It's unhealthy. You treat him like a child because you don't have a real family. We thought if he was gone, you might focus on repairing relationships with people." "People?" I choked out. "You mean you?" "Yes," Mom said. "We are your family, Violet, not a dog. You chose that dog over your mother's party. So we removed the distraction." Removed the distraction. Like he was a toy, like he was a bad habit. They didn't look sorry. They looked righteous. They looked like they had done me a favor. They sat there in their comfortable living room, having sold the only thing I loved to a stranger on the internet, and they expected me to thank them. Something inside me died in that moment. The good daughter died. The Violet who wanted peace died. The Violet who kept secrets and bilaid them out and paid their bills. She took her last breath and vanished. And in her place, something else woke up. Something cold. Something silent. Something lethal. I didn't scream. Screaming is for people who think they can be heard. I knew now that they couldn't hear me. They never had. I looked at Natalie. She was still smirking, waiting for me to cry. She wanted the drama. She wanted the tears. I walked over to the mantelpiece. There was a collection of framed photos there. Photos of Natalie winning a beauty pageant. Photos of Natalie graduating. Photos of Mom and Dad on vacation. There were no photos of me. I picked up the photo of Natalie in her crown. It was heavy crystal. "What are you doing?" Mom asked, her voice sharp. I didn't answer. I dropped it. Crash. The sound was incredibly loud in the quiet room. The glass shattered. The frame broke. "Violet," Dad yelled, standing up. I walked to the next one. A photo of the perfect family at Christmas without me because I was taking the picture. I swept my arm across the mantel. Crash, smash, clatter. 5 frames hit the floor. Glass flew everywhere. "Stop it," Natalie shrieked. She jumped up from the couch. "Mom, make her stop." I turned to the coffee table. There was a vase of flowers there, flowers I had sent them for Mother's Day. I picked up the vase. I poured the water onto the expensive Persian rug. Then I dropped the vase onto the hardwood floor. It exploded into ceramic shards. "Have you lost your mind?" Mom screamed. She was clutching her chest. "Call the police, Frank." "She's crazy." I kept moving. I moved with a terrifying calm. I wasn't running. I wasn't flailing. I was methodical. I walked to the display cabinet where Mom kept her precious Hummel figurines. The ones she dusted every week. The ones she loved more than she loved me. I opened the glass door. "Don't you dare," Mom whispered. I picked up a porcelain boy with an umbrella. I looked at her. "You sold my dog," I said. I dropped the figurine. It shattered into dust. I picked up a shepherdess. Drop, smash. I picked up a duck. Drop, smash. "Frank, do something." Mom was sobbing now. "My collection." Dad tried to grab my arm. "Violet, stop this right now." I spun around and looked at him. My eyes must have looked dead because he recoiled. He let go of my arm like it was burning hot. You wanted peace, I said to him. This is what happens when you break the peacekeeper. I walked past him to the hallway closet. I knew Natalie kept her expensive coats in there, the leather jacket I had bought her for her birthday, the winter coat she begged for. I opened the closet. I took out the leather jacket. I walked to the kitchen. I opened the drawer where the scissors were. No, Natalie screamed. She tried to run at me, but the floor was covered in glass and water. She slipped and fell hard on her hip. I took the scissors. Snip. I cut the sleeve off the jacket. Snip. I cut the collar. I threw the ruined leather onto the pile of broken glass. I was destroying the curated image of their lives, the happy photos, the precious collectibles, the expensive clothes. I was showing them what their insides looked like, broken, sharp, and messy. I'm calling 911, Dad yelled. He was holding the landline phone, his hands shaking. I'm calling the police. Good, I said. I stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by destruction. Call them. I waited. I didn't run. I didn't try to leave. I stood there, holding the scissors loosely in my hand. I watched them panic. Mom was wailing over her figurines. Natalie was crying over her jacket. Dad was shouting into the phone, My daughter is violent. She's destroying the house. Send someone now. They looked at me like I was a monster. But I wasn't a monster. I was a mirror. I was reflecting their own violence back at them. They had destroyed a living creature, a soul that loved me. I was just destroying things. Things can be replaced, trust cannot. The sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder and louder. Blue and red lights flashed against the living room window, illuminating the wreckage. 2 officers walked in. One was older, with gray hair. The other was young, female, with a stern face. They saw the glass, they saw the water, they saw me standing there. Drop the scissors, ma'am, the older officer said calmly, his hand resting near his belt. I placed the scissors on the kitchen counter. I raised my hands. They are down. She's crazy, Mom screamed, pointing a shaking finger at me. Look what she did. She broke everything. She's unstable. Arrest her. She attacked us. Natalie lied, sobbing from the floor. She tried to stab me with those scissors. The officers looked at me. They saw a woman in business casual clothes, standing still, surrounded by chaos. They saw my parents, hysterical and red-faced. Ma'am, what is going on here? The female officer asked me. My name is Violet Bloom, I said clearly. My voice didn't shake. I own a dog, a golden retriever named Bentley. He is microchipped in my name. I have his registration in my car. The officer blinked. Okay, I went out of town for work, I continued. I asked my parents to watch him. When I came back an hour ago to pick him up, they told me they sold him. The female officer's face changed. Her eyebrows shot up. She looked from me to my parents. Is that true? She asked my dad. Dad puffed up his chest. That's a family matter. The dog was a nuisance. We found him a new home. That gives her no right to destroy my house. Who sold the dog? The officer asked. I did, Natalie said from the floor. She stood up, wiping her eyes. She thought she was the victim. I found a buyer. He paid cash. It's done. Did you have the owner's permission? The officer asked Natalie. He was in our house, Natalie said, as if that explained everything. We can do what we want. The female officer looked at her partner. Then she looked at Natalie. Ma'am, she said to Natalie, selling property that does not belong to you is theft. Selling a companion animal without the owner's consent is a crime. Depending on the value of the dog, it could be a felony. Natalie's face went white. What? No. It's just a dog. It's theft, the officer repeated, and receiving stolen property. But look at my house, Mom shrieked. Look what she did. We'll get to the vandalism, the older officer said. But right now, we have a theft in progress. Where is the dog? I don't know the guy's address, Natalie stammered. We met at the gas station. I have his number in my phone. Get the phone, the officer ordered. Natalie scrambled to get her phone. She was shaking now. The power dynamic had shifted so fast her head was spinning. She thought the police were her personal security guards. She didn't realize that laws applied to her too. Call him, the officer said. Put it on speaker. Natalie dialed. The phone rang 3 times. A gruff voice answered. Yeah, hi, this is Natalie, she squeaked. The girl with the dog. Yeah, no refunds, lady, the man said. No, The police are here, Natalie said. She was crying for real now. You have to bring the dog back. It was a mistake. I ain't bringing nothing back, the man said. I bought him fair and square. The female officer took the phone from Natalie's hand. "This is Officer Miller with the county police," she said, her voice like steel. "You are in possession of stolen property. We have your phone number, which means we can find your location. If that dog is not returned to this address within 30 minutes, I will be issuing a warrant for your arrest for receiving stolen goods. Do you understand?" There was a long silence. "I'll be there in 20, the man grunted. He hung up. The officer handed the phone back to Natalie, then she reached for her handcuffs. "Natalie Bloom," she said, "please turn around and place your hands behind your back." "What?" Natalie screamed. "Mom. Daddy, you are under arrest for theft," the officer said, clicking the cuffs onto Natalie's wrists. The sound was metallic and final. "You can't arrest her," Dad yelled. "She's my daughter, arrest Violet." "Look at the glass. Violet Bloom will be cited for property damage," the older officer said. "But your other daughter committed a theft, and frankly, sir, you admitted to being an accomplice." Dad shut his mouth. He looked at Natalie in handcuffs. He looked at the broken Hummel figurines. He looked at me. For the first time in 30 years, he looked afraid of me. We waited in silence. Natalie was sitting in the back of the patrol car, crying hysterically. My parents were sitting on the couch, surrounded by the ruins of their living room, refusing to look at me. I stood by the window, watching the driveway. I didn't care about the glass. I didn't care about the police citation I was going to get. I only cared about one thing. 18 minutes later, a rusty pickup truck pulled into the driveway. A large man in a camo hat got out. He walked to the back of the truck. My heart stopped. He opened the tailgate. Bentley jumped out. He looked confused. He looked scared. His tail was tucked between his legs. He was looking around wildly. I burst out the front door, running past the police officer. "Bentley," I screamed. He heard my voice. His ears perked up. He saw me. He didn't just run, he flew. He scrambled across the pavement, his paws slipping, running so fast he almost tripped over himself. I fell to my knees on the grass. He slammed into me, a 60-pound ball of golden fur and relief. He was whining, licking my face, burying his head in my neck. He was shaking. "I've got you," I sobbed, burying my face in his fur. "I've got you, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." He smelled like old cigarettes and fear, but he was alive. He was whole. The man in the truck spat on the ground, glared at the cop and drove away. He didn't want trouble. The female officer walked over to me. She watched me holding my dog, her face softened. "Is he okay?" she asked. "He's scared," I said, wiping my tears. "But he's okay." "Here's the situation," she said quietly. "Your parents want to press charges for the damage to the house. That's criminal mischief. It's a misdemeanor because the value is likely under the felony limit, but it's still a charge." "I don't care," I said. "I'll pay the fine. I'll do the community service." "However," she continued, "you can press charges against your sister for the theft, and your parents for conspiracy." I looked at the house. I saw my mother watching from the window, her face twisted in hate. "I want to press charges," I said. "Are you sure?" the officer asked. "It's family." "No," I said, clipping Bentley's leash onto his collar. "They aren't family, they're just people I used to know." I gave my statement. I signed the papers. I watched them put Natalie in the back of the squad car to take her to the station for booking. My mother came out onto the porch as I was walking to my car with Bentley. "If you do this," she hissed, her voice venomous, "you are dead to us. Don't ever call us. Don't ever come back. I will remove you from the will. I will tell everyone what you did." I opened the car door and let Bentley hop in. He curled up on the back seat immediately, exhausted. I turned to my mother. "You already took everything that mattered," I said. "You took my time, you took my money, you took my love, you tried to take my dog. You have nothing left that I want. You will die alone," she screamed as I got in the driver's seat. "Better alone than with you," I said. I started the engine. I backed out of the driveway. I drove past the police car where my sister was weeping. I drove past the house where I grew up. I didn't look back in the rearview mirror, not even once. It has been 6 months. My apartment is quiet. It's a Friday night. Bentley is sleeping at the foot of my bed. He twitches sometimes in his sleep, dreaming of chasing squirrels. Whenever he wakes up scared, I'm right there to pet him until he falls back asleep. He's happy again. His tail never stops wagging. I plead no contest to the vandalism charge. The judge, after hearing the story about the dog, gave me the minimum sentence, a $500 fine and 6 months of probation. He looked at me over his glasses and said, "I understand the provocation, Miss Bloom, but next time just call us first." Natalie got probation too, but she now has a theft record. She lost her job at the boutique because they don't trust employees who steal. I haven't spoken to my parents. They tried to reach out once, a month ago. A letter arrived in the mail, no return address. I opened it. It was a bill. A handwritten list from my mother of every item I broke, with inflated prices next to them. Hummel figurine, $400. Picture frame, $50. The total was $5,000. At the bottom she wrote, "Pay this and we can discuss forgiveness." I laughed, a genuine, belly-shaking laugh. I took the letter to the kitchen sink. I lit a match. I watched it burn until it was just ash in the drain. Then I turned on the water and washed it away. I changed my locks the day after the incident. I changed my phone number. I blocked them on social media. I told my boss that if anyone from the Bloom family calls, they are to be blocked. My life is different now. I have money in my savings account because I'm not bailing anyone out. I have free time on weekends because I'm not planning parties or running errands for ungrateful people. I have peace. It's not the fake peace my father wanted, the peace that comes from silencing the victim. It's real peace. The peace of an empty room, the peace of a quiet phone. I realized I didn't lose a family. You can't lose something you never really had. I was never a daughter to them. I was an employee. I was a resource. And when the resource fought back, they tried to destroy it. I stepped away from people who never wanted my whole self, only my usefulness. I looked at Bentley. He opened one eye, thumped his tail once, and went back to sleep. I walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. I was alone, yes, but I wasn't lonely. I felt full. I felt strong. I whispered to the glass, to the city, to the universe. They drew the line years ago. I finally stopped crossing it. If you've ever felt like the invisible backbone of your family, or if you've ever had to walk away to save yourself, let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. I read every single comment.